Did Jesus really say that wars, famines, and earthquakes would be signs that he will soon return? Many believe he did, pointing to his words in Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21. But what if that's not actually what he meant? What if this common interpretation is based on a misunderstanding? Let's take a closer look. The confusion comes from the way people have most often read Christ's words before he answered his apostles' questions about a sign of his coming. Christ described many other events that he said must happen first, but he never said a lot more wars, famines, plagues, and earthquakes would be signs that he will very soon return. Many Christians have been taught that when all these conditions get dramatically worse within a single generation, that will be the sign that Christ's return is near. But the truth is, when we look at history, most of these conditions have not actually gotten worse over the past century. Take earthquakes, for example. Seismologists now tell us there has been no significant increase in either their strength or their frequency during the 20th century or the 21st century. The same is true for wars, famines, and deadly diseases. A simple look at world population growth over the last 2,000 years proves this. For most of this time, Earth's population remained fairly stable. In fact, it wasn't until around 1800 that it greatly increased to 1 billion people, then 2 billion by 1930, and then in less than another 100 years, it skyrocketed to over 8 billion. This massive population growth happened because fewer people died from war, starvation, and disease compared to earlier centuries. Organizations like NATO and the United Nations have helped reduce global conflicts, while advances in agriculture, sanitation, and medicine have prevented mass starvation and deadly plagues from wiping out populations the way they did in the past. But wait, if wars, famines, and earthquakes aren't signs that Jesus Christ will soon return, like many now believe, then what will be that sign? Hang on, the answer might surprise you. Since historians and experts agree that none of these conditions have worsened in recent years, and several have actually improved, it's clear that Jesus could not have meant for us to see them as indicators that his return is imminent. Instead, Jesus told his apostles that the hard times ahead, which he foretold, would be like the beginning of birth pains. In other words, he told them that much like a pregnant woman often has to endure many hours of pain before finally giving birth, mankind was going to have to endure many very difficult years before he would finally return to earth. And he then warned them and us, saying, "These things must happen first, but the end will not come right away." So, since wars, famines, plagues, and earthquakes have always existed, they cannot be a sign that Christ will soon return. For that sign, he said in Matthew 24:30, will not be a lot of bad things happening on the earth. Instead, that sign, he said, will appear in the sky. But what exactly will it be? And when exactly will it appear? You can find convincing answers to both of these questions in this book's 13th chapter. You can also learn much more about Bible prophecy by now subscribing to this channel.